Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Honest Concepts Podcast. So happy to see you all here today. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. So if you guys don't know us, if you're new here, my name is Bronson. This is my instructor, Master Autry. What we do every week is come on here. We talk about our thoughts and our experiences about life. You know, I met you in the world of martial arts, and you brought me up in so many ways beyond that, you know. And a lot of the topics we talk about kind of commonplace in a dojo, but they spread way far beyond that into life and so much more. So every week we come back and forth. We have a topic and you have a topic. We just have fun, hang out with the people in our chat room and talk it out and have a good time. So this week was your topic.
It was.
Clever one. How'd you come up with it?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to let you take a hold of that. I'll pull up our chat here so we can stay in touch.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I'm ready.
You know, you asked me how I came up with it. Ms. Autry and I were at a restaurant a few months ago, and a couple of kids were sitting at the table, 9, 10 years old. They were cutting up, laughing, and, you know, kind of acting crazy, not really respectful. A lot of people was looking at them. And I was thinking, you know, they just haven't been taught. So I got thinking and stuff, and you know, when you plant a seed, when it starts growing, you have to pull the weeds out, and grass gets around it to sort of nourish, right? So my dad, I talk about my dad a lot, but he did that a lot. I mean, he would tell me, explain things to me, easygoing guy, very gentle. But he would plant a seed, and every now and then I'd get drifted off, and he'd have to fix it, you know, pull the weeds out. So one night, and I knew he was doing it, but I didn't really appreciate it. One night, I was like 14 years old. Him and I went to the ball game, semi-pro baseball in Charlotte. There was about 4 or 5 kids just acting stupid, really, just going crazy and getting on people's nerves and stuff. And my dad was just kind of glanced at them, didn't say anything. A couple of the parents down there were trying to tell them to be quiet. They were just louder and louder. So they started getting really bad. I mean, really bad. And my dad, nice and quiet, didn't say a word. He just kind of looked at me with just a little bitty grin. Just a little grin. Not a word. But it was an explosion in my head. And I got it. You planted the seed so I wouldn't be like that. And I was like, wow. He never said a word about those boys. I never said anything going home. I probably had a tear in my eye. But just the way he looked at me and gave me that little grin. See, son, this is why I teach you. And I was like, wow. When I grow up, I want to be like my dad.
Wow.
That's where that came from.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
True story.
I don't think there's a dollar amount I'd spend just to meet your dad. He sounds like such a cool guy. Always taking advantage of the opportunity to try and do the right thing. That's pretty sweet. I like that. That's where I
came up with it.
I like that a whole lot. I love that so much. You know, when you do a good job planting the seed, what comes from it is just insane. There's an old saying about it that you know, you take one seed and when you put it down, it produces way more than one fruit. You know, produces something abundant, right? And it's cool that I was actually thinking about this topic earlier. You told me you were going to be doing this, and I was thinking about how all the things in my life I was starting to kind of notice when that change started to happen, you know, when that seed that you planted for me began to make a difference, you know, when I started making better decisions and whatnot. And I had an argument with somebody maybe a couple of years ago. It wasn't super duper long ago. We weren't fighting, but we were just having a civil disagreement, you know, it wasn't anything crazy or whatever. And I said I said, you know, I don't think you can truly force a seed. I think planting a seed is so much different, you know, when you take your time, like you said, to remove those weeds and to get the rocks out of the soil, make sure it's nice and fertile, and you put the seed down in there, but you can't force it on somebody. And the reason why I was so passionate about that argument is because I never liked it when somebody tried to put me under their wing. You know, I was pushed back against. I couldn't stand it. I had a couple teachers and even a couple managers try to do that in my lifetime. Try to kind of, you know, snuggle me up under their wing, and I always fought back against that, and sometimes disrespectfully just pushed back against that. But I was always willing to go under a wing. I just didn't want to be forced there,
Right.
you know. And you never forced me to be that way. You never forced me to be any type of way, you know. But there was a spot there for me if I chose to be there. And I think that's kind of the difference between planting a seed versus trying to force your ideas or your principles upon somebody else just because you think your ideas are better than theirs. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It's almost like, excuse me, it's almost like they're telling you what to do.
Exactly.
I'm going to be your mentor.
Right.
I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. No, I don't want that. Do it on my own.
Exactly
And
right.
I'll choose.
Exactly.
And that's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's a nice way to rebel.
I mean, it feels, you know, yeah. And I think it's the recipe for rebellion. I think, you know, putting a monkey in a cage or a gorilla in a cage. You know what I mean? When the second he can get out that cage, it's going to be mayhem. You
Exactly.
know? And it was like that a lot for me growing up. That I was constantly looking for male figures and getting their approval. You know what I mean? Older people, of course. You know, somebody older and trying to get their approval. But that difference of me searching one out versus someone trying to put something in my mind or try to be slick about it. That's something that I think bothered me a lot when people would try to, quote, plant a seed to me.
It's almost like an ego for them.
It is. It's like an
I'm gonna win
insult.
you over.
It felt like an insult to my intelligence. Like as if I didn't know you were trying to subtly do something and persuade my ideas or even my view of you, you know what I mean, or whoever it could have been at the time. And I never liked that, and so I try not to do that now. You know, so I'm getting older. You know what I mean? So I'm getting older.
Well,
So yeah, and every day it seems like there's younger people that are getting hired onto my job or whatever I get involved with, and I try to think about what it was like when I was their age, and if I'm going to do or say anything, what would be the appropriate way to handle this in a way that's not insulting to their intelligence.
Sure.
You know, because a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, they might not make the best decisions in the world.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not smart. It just means they don't have the information to make good decisions yet, you know. But one thing that I was thinking about earlier that really resonated with me on this. Let me see this real quick. Pool Mike is on board. Good to see you, Mr. Pool Mike. Good to see you, Miss Jenny. I saw the title and thought more gardening analogies from Bronson. Yeah, as soon as you get into seeds.
tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce.
But I thought about the way that you can take a seed. This is kind of maybe abstract, but, you know, I think most people out there want to leave some type of legacy or some type of difference, you know. And I think you can take a seed from many people. And who I thought of was one of your instructors, Mr. John.
Right.
And you tell this story, so I'm not spilling any milk here. But there was a guy who wasn't necessarily the greatest role model out there, but you stuck around with him because you could learn something.
Right.
And I heard somebody say one day that I'm really lucky for having a mentor. And I agree with them. I am really lucky. Not a lot of people get that. But they said, I never could find one because everybody I knew, even the ones I liked, turned out to be jerks, or they turned out to be thieves, or they turned out to be something, and something was wrong there. And I didn't quite understand it because I think everybody out there has some type of quality that someone else might not like, but there's plenty of good that you can take from somebody.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's plenty of seeds that you can take and say, I like the way this guy does this thing.
Right.
You use chef analogies all the time, right? So you might say, I love the way this guy makes his red sauce, but the way he does his chicken, not my thing.
Right.
But this other chef over here, his red sauce ain't all that, but his chicken is doing really good things. I'll take both of those together and make my own thing out of it, And so I think it goes both ways. It's not just, how to plant the seed, but it's also who you can take seeds from sometimes and end up with a really nice, diverse garden, if you will, that becomes your own personality.
You were actually talking about Mr. John. We've told the story a little bit, but one day we were sitting there, and this has been years and years and years ago. I told you about me sitting on the steps at the YMCA waiting for him to come in. And somebody asked me, why do you sit and wait on that? And he said a few cuss words. I said, because if he comes, I'm going to learn something. But it went past that. Not only can I learn something, but it satisfies what I'm looking for. Like you're talking about. I'm looking for that new technique. I'm looking for that judo throw. I'm looking for that lock or whatever. I'm looking for that. You know, like you're looking for a mentor. I was looking for the technique.
Right.
And I know he could show it to me.
Right.
And that's what it's the same thing. It's just opposite.
You're right.
I don't know if that
You're
makes
right.
sense.
It's something of value to
Yeah.
you, something that you
Exactly.
take this is valuable to me, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm willing to look past a couple of things to make it get there.
Right.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine, he's doing really well for himself. I haven't spoken to him in years, but I know he's doing well. He went on to work for a bank, and the way he got into that was by working a cashier job. He knew he needed to have his hands on some cash,
Right.
you know, money handling. And he got a promotion from cashier. He started working in the back room. He was handling the safe and all that. He didn't like the job at all,
Right.
but he did what he needed to do in order to get what he wanted.
Right.
And I think that it's very similar for a lot of us, is that there's something of value to you. You know, you
Yeah.
can do some things that you don't necessarily like along the way, so you can get that thing of value to you. So, to me, it makes a lot of sense. Pool Mike says, funny, Connor, since when do men apologize? We concede or concede gracefully instead. You're exactly right.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well. But when it comes to planting a seed, the last and real final statement I had kind of prepared for it was, I think that maybe as I get older, I'll evolve the way I do things. You have a way with words, you have a way with people, you know, but you have a lot of experience with that. You spend a lot of time talking with people and doing things. For myself, I don't have that skill just yet, I don't think. At least as refined, you know. And so what I've tried to do is try to more or less be that person who I wanted to be, you know, and live by that example. And you know, there's a lot of things out there in the world that you can, you know, shove in somebody's face, whether it's politics or religion or whatever it is out there, the way you want to parent a child or something, right? Everybody's got some pretty strong opinions, you know? And I found when I was younger that battling on those hilltops sometimes wasn't really having the effect I wanted. It didn't have that persuasive power that I wanted it to have, that I'm winning this battle type of thing. And so over the years, I kind of switched it up to where instead of speaking it, I would just do it, you know? I'd act this way. And I've seen some pretty good results from it over the years. You know, I had some friends who looked at some things and said some nice things to me once they saw that it wasn't just words. I really live by these things. You know, we don't just say, hey, we try to be a good person, but we actually do these things. We do hold the door for people, and we clean up our own messes, and we look out for each other. And if somebody's having a hard time, if you go out of your way to help them out without being asked to, I think that is a really great way to plant a seed, because it's you know, words are really cheap, you know? You can say 1,000 of them, and the more there are, the more their value drops. But I think those actions really hold value.
And also what I think is as you're doing it, you need to be humble. You know, if you're humble, people don't mind being around you.
Right.
And they'll listen to you, and as long as you don't just talk forever. But if you're humble, they'll be like, wow, you know, this guy's, he's pretty good at this, and he's also humble. So he's got some knowledge. But if you're ego about it, you know, like I said, I've seen so many instructors who have just such a big ego, and I just couldn't handle it. So I just go to another school when I was young. But, you know, just being humble with your students, humble with your wife or your husband and that, or boyfriend, girlfriend, your children and stuff. I mean, even though, you know, you're a man, you're going to take care of business if you have to, but you can still be humble. And that's what really my dad taught me. He was really humble. Now, he wasn't a sissy guy by no means, you know. I've seen him, you know, take a few guys and say, hey, this is going to stop, you know. I was like, whoa, you know. But he was humble most of the time, you know. And sometimes we have to stand up, but most of the time if you're humble, it just makes you feel better. It makes them feel better, and it makes them feel comfortable.
You're right.
And if they're comfortable, they're going to learn.
Exactly
That's the biggest thing about teaching.
Exactly right. You're so right. It creates an environment where people can be at ease, you know, just being at ease. And you can see that a lot of times. You can feel it yourself. You ever been somewhere? I just think of a quick example. You ever seen somebody like do karaoke, right? And that person picks up the mic. They're nervous they're going to sing in front of all those people. But really, everyone out in the crowd is just as nervous as you are because they don't want you to be bad because that's embarrassing for them too, you know? And so they're all just as nervous as you. And as soon as you let out, you know, some notes and you're hitting the notes and you're singing real good, everybody kind of eases back in the chair.
Right.
And it's a very similar thing when you're working with people or talking with people. If you can help people relax a little bit, everything just works so much smoother, you know. It's
Talking about planting seeds and stuff. And have you ever, in your students, I'm sure you probably haven't run across this too much, but, you know, I've tried to plant seeds in certain students, and the parents wouldn't let them have the seed.
wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd say, well, you know, be sure you do this. Oh, we don't do it that way at our house. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to help this child. You know, when you go home, be sure you fold up your pajamas in the morning when you wake up. Little small kids.
Right.
Try and give them responsibilities. And I want you to come back next week and tell me how you folded them. Okay, Master Archer, I'll do that. Excuse me, sir, we don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, you brought them in here for me to teach them. You tell me you're having a hard time with them. That's the problem. Short and sweet. That's the problem.
Problem identified.
The problem, the 6-year-old is still
you.
41-year-old mom and dad.
That is
You know what I'm
hilarious.
saying?
Uh-huh.
You know, you give them little things. I know one time I was teaching somewhere. I don't know where it was at. I had like 30 or 40 kids. I was going off school. Somebody else's school was teaching. And I said, okay, I want everybody to go home and hug. They were little kids, you know, like 5 and 6 and 7, doing a little class. I want everybody to hug them and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, to your mom and dad. Tell them you love them. Just hug their neck. The boy raised his hand. I said, yes, sir. He said, my mom and daddy, they tell me not to ever say ma'am or sir to nobody.
Really?
Yeah. I said, really? That's what I told him.
Wow, jeez.
I said, well, ask him why and come back and tell me. I mean, he couldn't. He was so young. But he said, they told me don't ever say ma'am or sir. I said, okay. Yes,
Interesting.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
True story.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before. I've read into some cultural differences before. I heard somebody, they're from up north, and they were like, you know, don't call me ma'am. You know, that's rude. It's like you're calling me old type of thing,
Right.
you know. And, you know, down here, it's just a respect thing. We do it to everybody.
Right. Your mama is a ma'am. Your daddy is a sir.
Yes,
No, that's-
exactly. Exactly. Even when my daughter does something wrong, we go, no, ma'am. No, ma'am, we don't do that here. You know? Yeah. That's just, I guess it's a cultural thing, I guess. I'm not too sure. But, you know, that's just kind of how we do it. But isn't that funny how that works, though? When you're trying to help and it's like something else just comes by and rips it up, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of a hard thing to deal with. It's... I imagine it's kind of similar when you're dealing with, you know, a kid who's growing up, who's starting to look to their peers more, right?
Right.
'Cause I can remember being young enough to where I was trying to copy the facial expressions my mom and dad would make, you
Right.
know, or I'd practice picking up a phone. It's like, it wasn't even a real phone. I'd practice trying to sound like my dad when I'd pick up a phone, you know. He'd always he'd say yellow.
You probably not sound like Just kidding, John.
Oh, excuse me. So we do that, you know, and after a while, there's a time when, you know, you've done all that work to try to help build up this child and help them kind of learn the right ways of doing things. And eventually they start learning how to talk like their friends and they go after their peers. And before you know it, they're picking up the phone saying, yo, instead of hello, you
Right.
know, and you watch those things change. I'm sure it's a weird feeling. You know, I'm not really ready for that yet, you know?
Yeah. And also, talking about planting seeds, it's not just always for young kids. It's older kids too, or adults.
Right.
I mean, in school, we plant seeds all the time.
Absolutely.
They don't know it. I mean, it's not that we're being secretive about it, but we have a certain regimen that we do. And I'll say yes sir, no sir, and we'll talk sir to each other or ma'am and stuff. Then they'll start doing it.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
without even thinking about it. And then that carries to their work or to their home or whatever.
You're right. It sets that precedent. It certainly does. And it helped me a lot. I'll tell you what, and bringing that type of attitude into job interviews or whatever, especially as a young man, it made a humongous difference. You know, it really does help a lot. And I think one thing that helps a lot in that, and I know it helped because it helped with me, was doing the whole less is more thing. Is that you don't have to put 1,000 seeds in at the same time. You know, you just take your time with it, especially if you got somebody for a while, you know, like a student or a coworker or somebody, whatever, a child, whatever. you know, you can play the long game here.
Right.
You know, not everything has to be turned into a life lesson, but those important matters can. And those
Right.
are the things that really matter a whole lot.
Yeah.
For instance, when I was 16, 17, I couldn't wait to come back into your school. I couldn't wait to come back into class.
Right.
And get that new seed, you know, because I wasn't overfed.
Right.
It wasn't like you were shoving them down our throats. We'd come in, we'd have a good time, we'd do our lesson. By the end of class, you'd say something, be like, wow, that was pretty cool. And then come around Monday evening, it's like, well, Tuesday is tomorrow. I got to get back into class. Yeah, I can't wait to get another one of those seeds, because it was just less is more, you know, just enough to make them want to come back in and get some more of it, you know.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not a sneaky thing.
No.
It's just positivity is really not courageous. I mean, it is, but it's contagious, you know? Yeah, it's really contagious.
It is.
You want some more of that, you know? But there is such a thing as like toxic positivity, you know?
Yes.
It's like too many rainbows.
Yeah.
It's just getting to be too much. You start to fall out of it. Pool Mike says, my dog reacts to no mommy. She's a Tennessee girl. Oh, no ma'am. Oh, she reacts to no ma'am. Yeah, you know, hey, your dog's got good seeds.
He's got a great name.
Yeah.
That dog is huge.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that is a really, really big dog. That's funny. Goodness gracious. So there's Miss Jenny. I was going to ask you them. Miss Jenny says, I try and fill the room and give my advice as a third person and with a different view. It's not always right, but if one thing is taken from that and it helps, I've succeeded in what my purpose is. Yeah, and that's all it is, right? It's just one at a time. There's another famous old saying that says, you know, one person plants a seed, another person's job might be to come around and water it later.
Yeah.
You know, you're just doing what you can. And if something sticks, great. If not, you did your best.
Sure.
And it maybe you're just not that one, you know, it's just not that one who's supposed to do it that day. And, you know, it's always a weird line to walk when you talk about, you know, planting seeds, right? Because sometimes it can come off like as if you're being, you know, manipulative, right? Like
Well,
you're trying.
You're better than them.
Right, you're pulling little puppet strings.
Right,
Like these
right.
are, you know, you're not viewing them as people anymore. You're viewing them as, you know, it's something else. And it's a weird line to walk, because it puts you in this place of, what's the word? Advantage, or you're above them or something like that, you know, in a superiority type of level. But planting a seed is so much more than that, because everybody wants to be in a safer neighborhood.
Sure.
Everybody wants to be in a happier neighborhood. And a lot of times what that means is that you have to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I heard somebody tell me one day, said, you're not stuck in traffic, you are traffic. You're a part of it. I was like, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's a valid point. So,
right
you know, when you got your community, you are the community, you
Yeah.
know, and you have to be part of that to be a happy person or a smiley person or whatever it is you think that your job is to do out there. And in some ways, that is also planting seeds. It's not a manipulation
Sure
thing.
it is.
It's a teamwork
Sure it is.
thing.
Exactly.
It is. It's a teamwork thing. Miss Jenny says, a quote from Todd. Hey, Mr. Todd, I know you're listening. Good to see you, sir. You can plant the seed, and they have to provide the soil. Then you water the plant. And you're right. The soil's got to be fertile, right? You know, you can't put it in ground that doesn't accept it, right? It just doesn't work that way. And that's just kind of part of the job with it is, in some ways, that's what I mean when I say a little here, a little there, you know, doing a little at a time, because if the soil's not ready, you know, in some ways you're wasting your time, and in other ways you're not helping them at all.
Right.
Kind of making it worse in some cases, you know. Have you ever dealt with that before? Have you ever had a student that you just tried to help and they just pushed you back every step of the way?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had quite a few doing that through the years.
Really?
But I thought thousands of students. But
Sure.
yeah, I've had that happen. But, you know, a lot of times I've had a few issues with the parents, you know. And I'm out there, and when I say planting seeds, it's not that I'm out there. It's just I do the same thing every day.
Right.
Be a nice person, do the right thing. Be sure you say yes sir, yes ma'am, and just, you know, be nice and be kind to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what we need in this world, just be nice and kind. And I've had a few parents to kind of kick back on that. You know, I had a couple guys, and they were just they didn't really like that. A couple of the parents. So, and I told them, I said, look, it's your choice.
Right.
You know, this is the way I teach. Every instructor teaches different.
Right.
Every student learns different. This is the way I teach. It's not fake. It's what I'm all the time. That's the way I am. If I can help you, I'll help you.
Right.
But in this school, we say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. It's just what we do, even to kids and adults.
Right.
We learn in manners. You know, manners go a long way. They do for me, and that's the way I grew up in school.
Right.
You know, plus my family, that's the way I grew up in martial arts schools. But some people do kick about it a little bit. Very few, but I've had some, you know.
Yeah, it's so wild to me. If you're in a room full of people that are constantly punching each other and choking each other, you'd think that the first thing you want to lay down is to have respect for that other person. You know, say, hey, he's got to go to work tomorrow. He's got kids to raise, et cetera, you know. Practice like you care about that person.
Right.
And, you know, it's hard to care about somebody if you don't know how. It's hard to care about somebody if you don't have a connection or relationship. And you set that precedent like that yes or no, sir. When I was 15 and there were adults in there calling me sir, I was like, hey, I feel like I'm respected in here. You know, that meant something to me. I liked that, you know. And I guess it's not for everybody. It's not something I necessarily understand, but it meant something, you know, to me
absolutely.
at least. The greatest part of planting a seed is you never know how it will grow. Yes, you're exactly right. And I don't know if you remember this or not. You were giving me a ride home at some point in time. I don't know. This is many, many years ago. You're dropping me off somewhere. I just don't know where we were coming from, where we were going. We spent a lot of nights in the truck together, eating Hardee's and drinking milkshakes and stuff.
We did.
But you told me one day, we were getting kind of into a deep conversation. You said, you know what you remind me of right now? You said, you look like a little tree. And I said, yes, sir. You said, yeah, you look like a little tree. He said, you're just now starting to get to the point where I can take off some of those bands. You have a tree growing up, you put these little bands on it to keep it from blowing over in the wind.
I don't remember. It sounds like what I'm
Yes.
saying. That sounds like me.
Yeah. You said you're like one of those young trees, and you're finally at a point where I feel like I can start to take some of those bands off of it, and you're just starting to grow a little bit and become strong enough to handle some of the winds and everything. And I think that's probably nerve-wracking in a lot of ways. You know, whether it's a student or whomever, you're watching this thing grow, and you're like, I just see what this tree can be one day. I know it can be a strong tree. I just hope it gets there. You know?
Did you ever think when you first walked in you'd be doing the special needs and all the teaching right now?
Oh,
when you
no,
first
sir.
walked in?
Absolutely
You hadn't
not.
included you.
No, not a clue. No, there's just no way. I mean, if it was like a multiple choice question, I wouldn't have circled this answer. I would have had no idea. You know, it's just not what I saw in my future at all. But it's funny how that goes. And I mean, I don't know. Would you have guessed it either? With special needs and all that? No. So you plant that
Well,
seed.
like I said last week, that's your calling. I think you're going to. I think you're going to do good at this.
Yes, sir.
I do.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank you.
Because I know how hard you've worked.
Yes, sir.
I do. And people don't realize. I mean, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work on your body.
It is.
I mean, you know, like I tell you, I've had 23 broken bones. 23 broken bones.
It's crazy.
And that's a lot of broken bones. You know, but it's something I enjoy doing.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But it's hard. People don't say, look at you out the floor walking around doing stuff and like, you know, it's hard.
It is.
It's tough.
It's mentally too. Because like you said, every student's different.
Yeah.
You know, I've got some students that come in and they want to go a little harder and a little rougher, and I'm all for that. I want that. And then 2 hours later, I'm working with somebody who really needs help just moving. You know what I mean? They just need help to move in the right area.
Yeah.
And some people are there for something completely different. They're there for something mental. They want some type of security or safety or confidence. And I mean, how do you do that? How do you take someone with no confidence and they're coming to you for help, and you walk them out the door? They're like, I feel more confident now.
Right.
I mean, that's like voodoo. I mean, that's insane. It is. And if you care, it matters to you. If you care, it weighs on you.
Right. That's it.
You know?
You have to care.
Yeah. When they walk out, you're like, I sure hope I did what I was supposed to do today. You know?
I've gone home a lot of nights. I'd set up to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when I was teaching a 12, 14, 15-year-old. Excuse me. I said, man, I told him this, but I should have said it this way. It bothered me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, instead of saying, I don't say it like this, but no, you did it wrong. Instead of saying, you know what, that looks good, but we can make it a little better. When I was young, I'd be like, that's not right. What I learned down the road is, hey, I don't want somebody to tell me it that way. So you learn, you know. And a lot of times I'd say even, well, that's good, but we can make it a little better. And I see them just go like, wow, you know. Then I say I should have reworded that because you catch yourself doing
Right.
that. You don't do it intentionally,
Right.
You know.
You're not trying to hurt them. You're trying to help them.
I didn't plant a seed. I was taking a little seed away.
Raking it up.
Sorry, kid. I don't feel like Farmer Brown today.
That's funny. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, it's funny how it does that too. You stay up. It was 2 weeks ago, I think it was. It was 2 weeks ago. I knew I had some private lessons coming in on a Sunday morning. And I woke up in the middle of the night from dreaming about what I was going to teach this kid coming in the next day. And I say kid, he's almost an adult now. But I was just sitting there. I had this dream. When I woke up, it dawned on me what I was trying to teach him in the dream. And I was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work on this, and I'll do it this way, and it's going to be perfect. And that was at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I sat there for like 30 minutes just thinking about it. It's like, I got that. As soon as he comes in here, this is how I'm going to structure that lesson around. I went right back to sleep. But that's just how it's cool, you know? It's just, you care enough to where it's in your subconscious. You're in there dreaming about it, you know? It matters to you.
Sure it does.
So that's pretty sweet. All right, we'll catch up on this because I know we're kind of behind a little bit. Miss Autry says every seed you plant may not have an immediate outcome because you may not know exactly whose life it touched. That's powerful.
Miss
There,
Autry.
you can put that in a fortune cookie. That was beautiful.
That was good.
Yeah, that
Sitting
was
on the couch
nice.
over there, that's pretty good.
And you're right. You never know who it is. I guess we can leave out with that is that you never really know who's watching, right? Even in this podcast, right? We're live right now, but it's on the internet. It's here forever. I mean, it's until Kingdom Come. This is up. And hopefully, I mean, how cool would that be if somebody sees one of these videos and goes, you know, I'm giving up on a lot of things. I've tried making friends. I've tried going to this place, and you know, maybe I'd go to a martial arts school. Maybe that'll do something for me. And you just never know what'll come from that.
You know, I guess the biggest reward, sorry guys, these allergies, but anyway, the biggest reward you can get, and you might have got some now, I don't know, excuse me, is when you have some kid or even adult hand you a letter. And you're like, okay, you open it up, and it's a tearjerker. Thank you for this, thank you for this. I couldn't have done this. And you're like, I didn't do anything.
Right.
You know, you did it. You know, you're thanking me, but you did it.
Right.
I just planted a few seeds, but you did it.
That's
you know?
so cool.
We used to keep a book of all the letters and thank yous and stuff, and it's just overwhelming. It really is. It's overwhelming. It is.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Well, guys, whatever you're going to be getting into this coming week, we'll be back on next Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern. While you're out there, plant some seeds and do it with a smile. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great night.